Well, welcome everyone. My name is Kirby Edmonds. I'll be moderating the debate this evening. I'm going to take a few minutes to thank the planning committee and describe what the process is going to be like. So, Jhakeem, Haltom, and Ramish McBride run the planning committee from Congo Square Market, and then Kirtrina, Kirtrina Baxter, Jemila, Sequeira, and Caleb Thomas were also on the planning committee. So the way this is going to work is mainly the questions are going to be coming from you. So as soon as we get started, you'll get index cards to write any questions you have. Candidates will each get 2 minutes to make an opening statement. They have the one question that we have prepared for them in front of them. So they'll each get 2 minutes to address that question. And that'll give you all about half an hour to fill in index cards and think about other questions you might want to ask. A couple of people will gather up the cards, try to look at them, organize them, and pick 2 of them to ask next. And then the candidates will each get, how long? We'll each get 2 minutes to respond to 2 questions from the audience. And after that happens, they'll get another 2 minutes to respond to another 2 questions from the audience. We're going to save all of your questions so that candidates, if they have their own websites, have the opportunity to answer them on their own websites. There's also just newly starting a Congo Square Market website, so candidates will be invited to send questions to, or answers to questions that you don't get to respond to tonight.
Would you mind moving this?
The Congo Square Market, where they'll get posted.
It's kind of like in the middle.
After asking the questions, we will have about 10 minutes or so for rebuttal time. So if you want to respond to anything any of the other candidates have said, you can, but it will have to be very short. Candidates are listed in front of you in alphabetical order so that we didn't have to be confused about who would go first. So JR will get to go first. So if you could just say your name and whatever it is you want to say for 2 minutes. In front of you, there's a person sitting at that chair right there that has these folders. One is green, one's yellow, one's red. Green means it's your turn, start. Yellow means you have about 30 seconds left. And red means stop. And I'll be paying attention to that, and I will stop you after 2 minutes. So, go.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone. My name is J.R. Clairborne. I'm currently a Common Council member representing the 2nd Ward, which is where we all are today. I am also today standing before you running as candidate for the mayor of the city of Ithaca. I'm running because this is a time where our community is coming upon a time of transition, a time of change, and a time where we have a lot of uncertainty about what tomorrow will be. I'm running because a lot of people, many of you here in this audience have approached me and said, we need somebody like you to run for council. You have told me that you need someone like me to run for council because you're looking for someone who is inclusive, for someone who is connected to the community, for someone who is empowering of other people, and most importantly, someone who is connected and involved in the community, not someone who just came on the scene, but has been a known commodity for quite a while. I've been in Ithaca for 15 years. Actually, yeah, 15 years, a decade and a half. I've now joined the course of people who said they moved here for 2 years, and I'm still here. I am a parent. I'm a homeowner. I am someone who calls many of you here friends. I'm somebody who is involved in our city council in ways at different levels of our government, where I've seen many of the things that are good, many of the things that can be tweaked, many of the things to not repeat. I bring into your demonstrated leadership. In my 6 years on council, I've been a part of the leadership, a chair of the committee for 3 years, a chair of 3 standing committees, and I'm currently the chair of the City Administration Committee. Most important thing I'd like for you to know is that as I run today, as I run this year, I'm running to have a government that is about its people, a city that is about its community. Thank you.
Hello, welcome to Southside. For all of you who come here often, welcome back.
For those of you who just got here for the first time, hopefully we'll see you next time, and I can say welcome back next time. My name is Anthony Gallucci. I am running for mayor of Ithaca under the People's Emancipation Party. It's a new political party that stands up for the concerns and the needs of the dispossessed, disenfranchised people in Ithaca, New York. Class-wise, we're talking about $35,000 or less earners, which is most of us, and ethnically, we're pretty much completely inclusive, talking about African, Black, Latina, indigenous populations, and rural white poor as well. Again, the main focus and interest is representing traditionally dispossessed ethnicities, so we do have a major focus on supporting the concerns of Black Americans, Latinas, and indigenous people. But overall, we're looking to create an atmosphere of solidarity across class lines in the lower class categories, as we have been limited to. Ultimately, essentially, let me give you a little background about who I am and then move on. I have been in Ithaca for 15 years as well. I have 2 beautiful daughters that I raise with the support of my sister and the community, and I'm very proud and blessed to have them. I do not have experience working within the political structure as it currently exists, and I'm proud to say that. I would be very interested in fulfilling the role of a mayor in hopes of supporting and creating an alternative governing system for humans in our society and in our locality. That takes patience, humility, future-mindedness, okay? And it takes trust and trustworthiness. That's what I'm here to offer. No false promises. We are a government that serves the people. That is the goal. Thank you for coming today.
Hi, I'm Janis Kelly, and I want to be your mayor. I'm grateful for being invited to speak since I have family in New Orleans, and Congo Square has particular resonance for me. Congo Square was where people came together to enjoy themselves and to plot a different and better future. Working together, you and I can do that for our city. We can build a sustainable Ithaca, economically sustainable, socially sustainable, environmentally sustainable. Right now, Ithaca is not sustainable. The city is $3.5 million in the red. The new tax cap means government can't just keep raising taxes to fill the gap. Work with me, and here is what we can do. We can take better care of the core functions of a city: public safety, infrastructure, roads, potholes, water and sewer, public health. Are you aware that for nearly 2 years we have not had a fire chief in the city of Ithaca? 2 of my opponents have been on Common Council for that whole time. Are you aware that Ithaca is potholes? Have you guys seen the Talmadge Tire bumper stickers? Are your streets better than they were 4 years ago? One of my opponents has been head of the Board of Public Works for that entire time. Are you aware that each day our water treatment plant delivers 3 million gallons of drinkable water and loses nearly 1 million gallons, mostly to leaks? That's more than $1 million a year in wasted water. We need to rebuild our water treatment plant before we shovel millions of dollars into other projects. Together, we can do better. We can build a sustainable Ithaca for ourselves, for our families, for the memory of our ancestors, and for our future. Thank you.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for inviting me. Thank you for your gracious hospitality, the fantastic food. I think a lot of you who know me know I grew up on arroz con gandules and plátano frito, so you may soon find me here someday behind a Dominican booth cooking food for you. But in all seriousness, I'd like to take a moment to tell you why I'm running for mayor. I don't think I need to tell any of you that these are difficult economic times. I mean, it's something we're hearing the media say all the time. These are difficult economic times. But how many of them have lived paycheck to paycheck? How many of them have gone without food to pay for a doctor's visit? How many of them have laid awake at night worrying about what the future holds for their children? Whether they will be able to provide them with a better life than they have, which is something that's growing more and more challenging with every passing day. We have an overwhelming need to expand employment opportunities in this community with the threat of decreased federal benefits, which many people rely on to feed their families. Families or obtain medical attention for their children The next mayor of Ithaca must make a solemn effort to ensure local economic sustainability and self-sufficiency. Now, I'm not naive enough to say that this is something that's just going to happen. But the first step on that path is to create jobs. We need to be aggressive in pursuing development. I ask that you consider some of the opportunities that we've lost in recent years in Target, in BJ's, a first-run movie theater down on Green Street. Between these few lost projects, there's hundreds of potential jobs in the city also lost. The truth is that when we say no to these projects, we are saying no to jobs. We are saying no to sales tax revenue that could help lower the cost of living for every Ithacan. We are saying no, and we're saying that these opportunities are better serving our neighbors in Lansing. I ask that you all think long and hard about the tax revenue that we're letting slip away. The good people of this city, they tell me that they don't need handouts, they need opportunities. They need real opportunities to afford real lives. I'm as confident in that as I am that my bills will still need to be paid tomorrow. As a recent service worker, student, business owner, renter, and expecting father, I know what you're going through, and I'm here to tell you today that I'm in your corner. I will fight for you. I will always be one of you. I will never forget your concerns. I will be your mayor. My name is Christopher Kushnir, and I thank you for the opportunity. Have a great day.
Good afternoon. Thank you for all of you for coming to this. This is incredibly exciting to have such a large crowd at our first forum. We're probably going to be at many of them. And I really appreciate the fact that Southside and the Congo market organized this. It's a tremendous opportunity for all of us. And hopefully we will come away from this with a better sense of who we're looking at. And in our discussion about our community over the next 2 months, that we as candidates will have a clear idea about what your concerns are, and that will be reflected in where we go. I have been in this community for a very long time. I have been involved in politics. I have been involved in community organizing. I've been involved in labor organizing. I am a person whose motto, threaded through all of the work that I've done over the last 30 years, is people come first. Is that representing neighborhood interests and representing workers' interests have been a mainstay in what my priorities are. I am somebody that cares very much about this community. I think that we need to create jobs, but I think we need to create good jobs, jobs that that have benefits and that will support a family. I think we also need to protect our neighborhoods. Our neighborhoods are where our families live. We don't want to sacrifice that just for our sales tax. We need a balance in our community. We need a rational economic development plan. We need a comprehensive plan. And we need a plan that's going to put our young people to work and keep them off the street and give them some hope. Because that's what we're lacking in our country right now, is the hope, is the promise that this country has always had in the past. And we need to move forward and try and recreate that hope in our community. And that means that we all need to put our shoulder to the wheel and work together to make it happen. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everybody. Great to see you all here at Southside. Thank you for hosting us at the Congo Square Market. This is my 4th or 5th time here this summer, and I haven't yet seen it quite this crowded, which is terrific. And I'm glad, too, that my mom has an opportunity to be here. My mom's in the audience, and she just looked at me because she's surprised I said she's here. But I'm happy she came in. She drove in from an hour away, my childhood home. I'm happy because she gets to see this great place, but she also gets to see me sitting up here with all these tremendous public servants and all those who want to lead the city. It's a moving moment for me because growing up, we didn't know many mayors. We didn't know many doctors or lawyers. My mother raised me, my brothers, and my sister under difficult circumstances with low pay and unstable housing. And she made sure that we all had a shot at success and that we've all been successful through creativity and hard work and a community surrounding us that supported us. You know, the challenges that we face as a family, I see them reflected in the city of Ithaca right now. I mean, I know the challenges we face are large. We do have a $3 million budget deficit. We do have a lack of affordable housing, a lack of quality housing. We've got a lack of housing at all in Congo. and we don't have enough jobs. We do have the threat of hydrofracking looming over us, looming over our environment. But I do think those same lessons that lifted our family to success and out of poverty can lift this city. I think with creativity and hard work, reaching out to community and leading boldly, we too will be successful here in the city of Ithaca. We too will continue to be one of the best places in the country to live. Thank you very much.
My name is Wykstraw, and I'm one of 6 public works commissioners for the city of Ithaca. I've lived in Ithaca for about 30 years. In that time, I've been a scholar of its history and a thinker about its progress and its future. I've worked for union scale and for less than a livable wage. I've lost money contracting. My wife Lauren and I have raised 2 daughters here, and we have a house of our own. In my 6 years of service in Ithaca's government, I've learned a lot of things. One is that we have a great structure, a progressive era charter that provides a check and balance system for our government. It's structured to protect our resources and assets from exploitation by either business or party machine. It also brings in the participation and the help of citizens. Another is that we have a great professional and general staff. We are the envy of other towns. I found that with mutual trust and respect, a lot can get done in an efficient way. Folks are dedicated to being useful, to see their professional efforts come to life. I like working with them, and I like getting things done. I've always valued collaboration and have rediscovered it during my years of service. Some of the most rewarding time of my life has been to join in service with the talented, good people whom I've been pleased to call colleagues and friends. I'm running for mayor because I believe that while we have several bright people also running, I'm the best capable, and I'm neither a party candidate nor a business candidate. I've taken part in many projects and helped solve problems. I've worked with common council members, with the mayor, and officials from other municipalities and agencies outside of Ithaca. A number of people have asked me why I would want the job. They know that this is, and it's going to be, a very difficult time. But I've said to them I'm compelled to run, that knowing what I know, I cannot turn away, and that I'm confident I could get things done, that I have the experience and wisdom to know what Ithaca needs to steer toward, and that this is also a very promising time for our city. And thanks for having me here.
Okay, so this is going to be a really important election for anybody who's not registered to vote. There's registration forms here. For anybody who knows anybody who's not registered to vote, you can take some of these with you. And I think people are out there collecting cards. You've heard a little bit from each of the candidates. If you have any other specific questions, you could hand them in to Caleb or Kirtrina. I think she's out there somewhere collecting cards as well, or Jemila, who's in the back. So this question that we're asking each of you is one, to give you an opportunity to say something about how you think, something about what you understand. So the question is related to, in his last book, Where Do We Go From Here, Chaos or Community, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. asserts that the great challenge of our time, if we are to survive as human beings, is to wipe out the last vestiges of racism, to end poverty, and to adopt nonviolence as a remedy for the militarism that threatens to destroy all hope for peaceful coexistence. My question to each of you is, what do you understand these words to mean? In other words, what is their relevance to us as we live here half a century later? What do you understand the role of local elected officials to be in responding to these challenges? And what specifically would you do as mayor to respond to these challenges? That is, to eliminate the last vestiges of racism in the city of Ithaca, to end poverty in the city of Ithaca, and to move the city of Ithaca toward greater nonviolence. What specifically would you do? And Anthony, it's your turn first.
All right, wiping out the last vestiges of racism, poverty, adopt nonviolence. Very quickly, I think most of us know the background of the pseudoscientific construction of race, and it was meant to install a caste system based on racial classification and based on a superficial hierarchy to the benefit of Eurocentrism, Western culture, or what has been deemed by Michael Eric Dyson as whiteness. And still going to say the same thing. So in terms of addressing racism and classism and the threat of military reaction to people that stand up in self-defense of the people, I'm going to take a two-tiered approach. One, I'm going to focus on the two concerns that they've highlighted, the two social phenomenons, racism and poverty. First, in concern with racism, I think that immediately what a representative can do, as we've heard from all these humans up here, the political system, the social system as it currently exists, and I'm not going to waste a lot of time on this because we know this, is dysfunctional, and it's not working for the majority of our people, okay? And the majority of our people in the long run is all of us, okay? So if it's not working, all right, then I have very little faith, and I'm not going to sit here and lie to you, that I would be able to go into a dysfunctional system, okay, and fix it, all right? That is not what I'm here to talk about or offer or pretend that we are capable of doing, any of us up here, okay? What I do have a little bit of faith in, in this shabby political structure and the way we organize human beings in Ithaca, New York, and the United States, is the fact that it can be used as a support for the creation of an autonomous and alternative way to govern ourselves and to support ourselves, okay? That's that. So along those lines, these two quick suggestions are going to come up. I got the yellow card here. In terms of racism, we need to have a direct connection between the violation of a person's human rights, okay, and a legitimate reaction from the state or the Ithaca, the city, okay, within the system to defend the people who've had their human rights violated. Very quickly, what this looks like is whether it be a white woman getting thrown around in the back of a police car, or whether it be Miss Kearney's daughter getting treated like shit on a bus on her way to the compulsory education system. Regardless of how it is, people need to be able to be empowered to stand up, bring a real credible claim of oppression against them to the city, not to the police advisory board, which has no power, to the city, and there needs to be a direct implementation by a bylaw change to then say, we're going to impose a monetary fine. Okay, in the long run, I would say a lot of other things, but initially within the system, money is time, okay, in this society. And money is what people listen to. And you want people to change their behaviors, then hit their pocketbooks, all right? Every single time that a black student is called a name or a woman is treated less than she deserves to be treated, there needs to be a real reaction. And people's pocketbooks need to be hit, and that's it. In terms of... If you want to hear more, please come and talk to me. I've obviously put a lot of thought into this. And I live right here among us, my friends. There's no we versus they. It's us. That's the real deal. Thank you.
The key to all of these things, racism, poverty, violence, is families and neighborhoods. What I would really focus on, number one, is family-friendly policies, things we can do to support, sustain, and encourage and validate families in the city of Ithaca. As I'm sure you all know, economic stress is one of the biggest factors in family breakdown. Economic development is what we need to help relieve that stress. I think the city has done an intense job of focusing on where we're going to live, but it hasn't spent enough time focusing on where we're going to work. And that's the first thing. The second thing is we need to, as Anthony brought out, really, really ensure equal treatment before the law. We also need to emphasize by precept and by example in city government the preciousness of each individual person. We need to act and demonstrate and enforce and emphasize the value that there are no people in the city of Ithaca who don't count. We all count. Finally, I think that we need to spend a little bit more time thinking about the health of neighborhoods, not just in terms of development, but in terms of infrastructure, in terms of public services, and in terms of other issues that neighborhoods are struggling with. And I would put a little more stress on that.
Talking about community, racism. These are things that I've experienced firsthand in my life. I know the consequence. I know the toll they take. As a person of mixed race, I did spend some time in a military school in Gainesville, Georgia. I've experienced it firsthand, and it's devastating. And there's no place for it in this community. As I look around, I see faces of all colors. I see people from all backgrounds, all here towards one goal: getting something better. A place where we can all live, call home, together, call our community. How I would change this, what I would do about it, I would work with our various ethnic societies, Latino Civic Association, the Congo Square Market, programs just like this one. We just need more of them. But look around you. This is a beautiful thing that we can see here, right now. All these people, all these ideas joined into one place. This is exactly what we need to be doing. We just need a lot more of it. And that's what I would do to build community. As far as racism goes, my apologies. That's what I would do towards racism. As far as building community, providing youth opportunities, we have great programs in the city like the YES program. As a small business owner, I have several employees who I've acquired through the YES program. Now, these are young students who come to me as high school students, and in working with the city of Ithaca, I have the opportunity to train them towards a job. And as a small business owner on that side, the city helps me in that respect to develop these young people into contributing members of our society. There are programs that are existing here, and I believe that we've scratched the surface. We have a lot of work to do, a tremendous amount of work to do, but we have started. The programs are here, and I just want to see more of them. So I would continue on in this path that we've started right here today. And thank you for the opportunity, as always, for coming to the Congo Square Market.
Well, I think that Dr. Martin Luther King was being very generous when he says wipe out the last vestiges of racism. I think we have seen evidence that racism actually is still very much a part of people's lives. And unfortunately, we're not quite at the last vestiges point, which is why I think it's incredibly important that we focus on racism, that I think our children are our hope. And I think that I know this is a phrase that's been used too many times, but I haven't found another one that quite fits it, is that it takes a community to raise a child. And I absolutely believe that. As mayor, I will put a huge effort into developing a relationship with the superintendent of schools, with the school district, of getting the city involved on some basic level in terms of our children. I think that providing them jobs, providing them with some hope, so that they choose a career instead of a life on the streets is something that is incredibly important. That if you look at poverty, you look at racism, that those are all those things are connected. And so to the degree that I know there are people in the community right now who are doing wonderful things with our youth. And I would like to do more. I would like to be part of that. I think that I would play a very active role, as active a role as I can, in terms of working with our youth. So my focus would be on youth. Obviously, we need other pieces to that because, of course, jobs are the foundation of relieving the stress that leads to some unseemly behavior or increases racism. Or racist behavior. We provide people with some economic stability. We will certainly help our economy and help our society to move forward. Thank you.
This is a heavy question to answer in 2 minutes. Yeah? So please forgive me if I speak in a bit of broad strokes. So I actually see 3 questions here. The first is, what do I understand these words to mean, right? That if we are going to survive as human beings, we need to wipe out the last vestiges of racism and poverty and then violence, right? What do I understand those words to mean? I think he was speaking in 2 ways. I think he meant literally, if we were to survive the threats of at the time in the 60s, nuclear war, we're going to survive the violence of riots, we need to find a way to figure out these problems. I think he meant it in a second way, too. If we're going to survive as human beings with all of the joy and the love that entails, right, we need to figure this out. There may be people left on this planet, but if we don't figure it out, we will no longer be human beings. So what's the second question? What is your responsibility as an elected official to do this? This is something I've grappled with being on council for the last 4 years. I think your first responsibility is that of a role model, right? An elected official needs to embody the love and the unity and the respect for each other. Right? You need to model that because folks do look to you. They look to you, and especially as mayor, folks will look to you. I think, and if you don't mind, I'll roll this answer into the next part of the question, which was, what would I do as mayor to end these three: racism, poverty, and violence? I think not only, it's not enough to just embody these attributes, you have to demand accountability. From the city staff, you've got 400 employees that wear that City of Ithaca logo on their shirts. You've got police officers, firefighters, Department of Public Works members who are out there in the community every day. And you need to ensure that they represent the values, those progressive values that are going to save our humanity. A few ways to do that: support the great work, the necessary work of the Workforce Diversity Committee. This is something that's been working in the City of Ithaca for years now to make sure that our staff, and indeed even us on council, are accountable, right? To end poverty. This is another topic. I think everybody talked about here, it's about jobs, it's about creating affordable housing and quality housing in the City of Ithaca. It's about young people, and I truly believe that as the chair that created the Ithaca Youth Council, chair of the committee that created the Ithaca Youth Council in 2008, somebody who's worked for years at Boynton Middle School, Ithaca High School, Cornell Cooperative Extension, and GIAC. My time is up, but I will say in closing, the most important thing you can do as a leader and as mayor is to listen to the folks who know more about you on these issues than you do, to learn from them. Folks like the community leaders of color, folks who work right here at Southside, and then lead boldly on these issues.
In response to the first part, the thing that comes to my mind is an overarching thing. We have a president of the United States who, along with having been a community organizer, along with being an activist and politician, was also 12 years a professor of constitutional law at the University of Chicago. When was the last time we had a president with those sort of credentials, with that sort of accomplishment? And it seems to me that we're at the age in our national history where we all can say we simply won't accept any more of that racism, of that thinking, of that behavior. And so we certainly can demand that sort of, we can demand that which thwarts it and that which sets a better example in our elected officials and our governments. We can have, I think, trainings. We can have, we can simply, as a society, as a community, not accept any more of that sort of behavior. And tell our public officials that we won't. When this sort of thing happens, we call it out immediately. We see that the law is applied. As far as poverty goes, I think that meaningful jobs are the key to ending that, and that, of course, goes hand in hand with racism. And I think in the city of Ithaca, what we really need are manufacturing jobs and other sorts of jobs that will pay some benefits and give people the hope that they can raise a family with. I think that will go away towards wiping that out. And as far as nonviolence goes, I think that as you lessen racism and poverty, you lessen violence. Thank you.
Thank you. I acknowledge a lot of good things we've heard here tonight from my colleagues, but I will take this from a little different tack. To wipe out the last vestiges of racism, I don't think this likes me. I think, particularly as a person of color, Every day I live that way, and I'm sure as many of you do. Every day we are challenged. When we walk out of the house, life is much different than when we're inside the house. To end the last vestiges of racism means that I make sure that people respect me as a human being that I am, and that I in turn respect you as a human being that you are. One thing about the notion of racism, that is something that I heard a man say once upon a time, that is antiquated. We talk about the new and improved and moving to the next level. Racism is old-fashioned, it's antiquated, it's something as a weapon of destruction from days long gone, and nothing has come good of it, and nothing will. To some of the things that we can do as elected officials, one thing is that we are a community. We have to acknowledge that many of us celebrate community, and that we have to acknowledge that there are a lot of us who simply do not have our own bootstrap to pull up in the first place. So sometimes we need each other's help in order to help each other make bootstraps and put those together. And when that doesn't fit, pass it along and borrow it so you can help somebody else. As a community, we need to recognize that Ithaca is a city, but it's also an area. Many of you out here today, I'm sure, came from places beyond the city's borders. Ithaca is home to a lot of people. Ithaca is the hub. And only when we embrace that, we acknowledge that the elected officials in our outer areas are also part of this solution, that's when we will be able to help do some of the things where we're talking about ending the vestiges of racism, to move beyond poverty, things and issues of that sort. Many of the people in these, the leaders in these other communities, some I call colleagues, some I call friends. Some of these are people that I can call to the table as mayor and say, help us figure this out. When we talk about what are some of the things that you would do to eliminate the vestiges of racism, the city does have a lot of good things going for it. You heard mention the Workforce Diversity Committee, of which I sat on as Common Council's liaison. This is a group that is really trying to make sure that, at the very least, the city's workforce does not promote racism and, in fact, turns its back toward on racism. You've heard about community leaders of color. I am one of those. I have yet to see an issue in this community, a large over-consuming issue, that I don't get involved in. Our community was torn asunder by the incident of last summer, and it is still have yet to repair itself, and we need to work together to get through that. And the last thing I'll say, real quickly, is that with respect to poverty, we have things that we need to advocate. I'm the lone person on council who consistently advocates for there being some component of affordable housing in any housing development that we get, and we need more of that. Thank you.
So we have about 10 seconds, 10 minutes for rebuttal, and Janis, you get to go first, so you have about 30 seconds. If there's anything anybody said you want to respond to, you can, you don't have to. The one thing that I will say is that I noticed that although most of you talked about jobs, on some level, none of you talked about ownership. I find that interesting.
Well, I don't have a rebuttal exactly. I just want to make a comment that, for one thing, it's wonderful to be a gay person living in Ithaca and running for mayor. And one of the great things about small town stuff is even the people you disagree with, you come to value because you're at common council meetings with them month after month after month. I've sat through a lot of common council meetings with JR and Svante. Pam and I occasionally find ourselves in similar places. I ran into Wade on the steps on my way into Common Council the other day and had an interesting talk about water. And Chris and I had lunch and talked about business, and Anthony's daughter was in my Girl Scout troop. And it's wonderful to be here. Thank you all.
Basically, just one quick thing. I truly believe that the end to all this comes with opportunity. I think that a lot of the problems arise when there is simply no place for you to go, no way for you to survive, and so you turn to whatever comes at your doorstep, which is usually something less than pleasant. The real issue here this year is really, as was mentioned, providing affordable housing and creating opportunities. I do believe that by doing that, we will accomplish a serious hit on racism and a serious promotion of our community building.
Nothing to respond to what the folks up here have said, but Kirby, you mentioned ownership. I assume you meant home ownership there. Home ownership? Ownership in here. Well, I'll speak about home ownership in the city because this is an interesting subject. You know, we have fewer than 5% of the owner-occupied homes are vacant in the city of Ithaca right now. What does that mean? It means that 95% of them are full. Right? That's a symptom that there's not enough housing in the city. Right? So what do you do? How do you create opportunities for folks to own their own home? This is something the city itself not that good at. You know who's very good at it? It's Ithaca Neighborhood Housing Service. You guys know this, INHS, Ithaca Neighborhood Housing. They do great work. Right? What they do is they rehabilitate. They buy and rehabilitate or even build housing, and then will sell it to folks at low and median incomes, right? With guaranteed low interest rates for years, or a reduced pricing, right? This is some work that we can support on the city by whenever a home falls into disrepair, helping INHS capture those homes and then put it back on the market. Thank you.
Actually, I would like to say something about ownership. Mine is less about home ownership than ownership of where we've come from and where we want to go. I think that I think it's my responsibility as mayor, as an elected official, to take ownership that we have an imperfect record in our history in terms of hiring minorities and encouraging that kind of hiring. And I think that we need to recognize that and move forward. And that is certainly something that I plan on walking the walk, doing less of the talking the talk. Thank you.
Sure. That's quick. I'll speak to ownership, and I'll look at ownership from another tact, which is from community. We need to have community ownership of ourselves, of our lives, take control of ourselves. I live in an INHS house. I've sat on one of INHS subcommittees. This is an organization that does help get people into homes. I also sit on the Housing Oversight Committee, which it's a county partnership that helps people or helps developers build houses, build projects that will help bring people into home ownership, which includes the Community Land Trust, which is something that seeks to keep the prices of housing down to an affordable level. I think that when we're talking about ownership, we also have to look at some of the resources we have in our communities and promote entrepreneurship. We have a lot of people who like to make their own businesses. They need help. There are some who cannot afford to just do business without some assistance, without an umbrella that allows them to cushion the need for paying the taxes that comes with workers' comp and items like that. These are the things that will help build build ownership in our community, be it through the neighborhoods, be it through home ownership, or be it through small business and entrepreneurship.
Very quickly, to exonerate ourselves from participation in exploiting people around the globe to make $1 and to become separate from the fiat capital system is a possibility for the local space called Ithaca. That is how we will truly forever end poverty, because that's going at the root of radical thinking that's actually creating this problem in the system of caste. Okay? We also need to be looking at human beings not as what they can produce, GDP. We've all heard this bogus approach to humans. And we need to look at the service people can offer to others. Okay? Again, diversity in the workplace. I don't know anything about a diversity workforce committee. I got a college degree from Ithaca College, a history degree, and an early childhood degree from TC3 that I struggled through with my ex-wife and my beautiful babies. And I am unemployed, happily raising my babies. Okay? But if we're talking about a workforce development committee, diversity committee, it's failing because I'm sitting right here. If you're talking about diversifying Ithaca beyond diversification of ethnicity, because that doesn't take into account personal approaches to society and social change, okay? It doesn't take into account emotional or spiritual well-being. Okay, we need to have more diverse representation, and if you're really about that, then vote AMP.
So one of the things that's really exciting about this opportunity is that the people standing on this lawn, if you act collectively, can decide who the next mayor is. So I'm hoping that you're listening very carefully. Here are some of the questions that have come from you. I'm going to read 2 different questions, and then you each will get 2 minutes. You can respond to either or both of them. It's up to you. The first one is, what is your position on the prison industrial complex? And what specifically would you do as mayor to eliminate the cycle of incarceration of young people of color in this city? That's the first question. And I'll send the card along with you so you can look at it again if you need to. Second question. So much of what politics is serving the needs of the so-called business community. How will you balance the needs of those interests with money, power, and access with the needs of everyone else, especially in light of global economic and ecological meltdown? And Christopher, you get to start.
Great time to go first. What is my position on the prison industrial complex, and I believe you're referring to the cycle of people going into prison, coming out, and going right back in. And not to keep beating a dead horse, so to say, but I truly believe that opportunity is the answer. The problem is that, look, I grew up in Liberty, New York. Half of the kids that I know that I went to high school with, I will level with you, did not make it out of Liberty, New York. They're either in jail there or they're buried there. And it's a sad cycle. The way around that is to give them something to do. I really believe that starting with the youth, providing opportunities for training, for work, for activities, for entertainment. These are the things that keep your children and my future children out of trouble. For me, when I was growing up, the biggest problems that I saw, when there was nothing to do, there was distractions everywhere I went. People pulling me to do the wrong thing over and over again. I believe that, and not to incorporate the second question, but in referring to the business community, I do believe that the interests are mutual. As a small business owner myself, I walk both lines. I am that business owner. I am a member of the business community. At the same time, I do live paycheck to paycheck, and if you ask any member of my staff, there's one sitting right over here who can attest to the fact that I work just as hard as every one of them, and when the hours are needed for my staff, I find work elsewhere so that I can provide the hours for my staff. This is one and the same issue. I truly believe that it is. By promoting more opportunities, by creating or pursuing development, we create jobs, we create avenues for entertainment. I see my time is up. I would just say one last thing in closing, in that it's all about giving someone something to do. Whether it's a job, whether it's a place to go, whether it's an activity center, whether it's the Congo Square Market, this is how we end this round.
I guess I would like to answer the second question, although I think that the whole issue of putting people in prison, particularly young African-American men, is an incredibly serious and issue that needs a lot of attention. I think it's connected to the second question, which is to do with power and money and access to what we all need in our society. And I think that we all would agree that what we have seen over the last 10 or 15 or 20 years is the consolidation of power in this country that we probably has never been there before, that we have moneyed interests that have access, that we have a voting system that now favors the wealthy because, of course, they have almost limitless amounts of money that they can pour into a campaign. And so what our hope is that what we have is we have each other. And I will say I'm going to use an issue that I've been involved in as an example of this. It's the hydrofracking issue. And I know people in the city of Ithaca feel less threatened about this in some level, although I think that's a false sense of security, because if hydrofracking comes here, we will all be affected by this in a very major way. But if you look at who the players are in this situation, you look at the gas industry, the gas and oil industry, one of the most powerful industries, one of the wealthiest industries in the world, that they have decided that they are going to impose this system of drilling on our country, on our beautiful natural areas, on our water supplies. There are so many people who have lost their access to clean.
So as mayor, I would advocate to the state. I do what I still do, always do, is I work directly with young people. I take pride in the fact that I mentor several young people here in the city. I believe that's an incredibly powerful opportunity, especially as mayor. Next question. How do you as mayor balance the interests of the business community with the community at large. Why is this a difficult thing to do? I'll tell you why. Because too often, right? I'll say often, the interests of the business community are entwined with the needs of the larger community, right? A business developer comes in, Target comes in, and they say, we can give you 150 jobs, right? Now this sounds good because the community needs jobs. Your job as mayor is to find that fine line where those jobs are no longer in the interest. And a question you have to ask is, are those living wage jobs, right? And will they feed the health of the community? And that's my time, man. That goes fast, huh?
As far as prisons go, prevention, of course, is everything. And the more money that we put into Head Start programs, the more money we put into community programs in which individuals interface with youth, the less time we're going to see people in prison. And I think another thing that's very important, on the other side of it, is a more flexible policing. In the last 20 years, we've seen program after program having to do with police training, more and more equipment. And I'm wondering whatever happened to critical thinking, whatever happened to a police officer saying to a kid, tell you what, I'm not going to just drag you down to the station. You and I are going to sit down, have a talk. And I know there are police officers out there who will do that. I'm just saying we need more. We need to re-encourage critical thinking, flexible thinking in policing. I think it would keep a lot of kids from being sucked into the system, because once they're sucked in, it's very difficult to get them out. And kids can go down very fast these days, way too fast, right in this community at sea. As far as business interests go, not since the 1920s have we seen wealth get siphoned upwards so quickly. And I think that it's time for local governments, especially with the people on their sides rather than the people thinking that they're consumers, to stand up and say, we cannot do this, we have to have local help, and it can't all be just headed towards the central government.
With regards to the prison industrial complex, the first thing we can do is stop supplying them with customers. In this community, we have people who I believe they need a second chance. One of the places we have is GIAC. It's real good. It's one of the places known for giving people second, third, and fourth chances, because sometimes we just need that help. But the other thing we need to do is also look at how the penalizing system is structured. Just to step out a little bit, I just have to ask this question, and I'm only asking the question: why is it that Barry Bonds was convicted of lying and got a prison sentence? Clemens, I just blanked on his first name, the baseball player Clemens, Roger Clemens, thank you, was brought on trial for the same thing, and there's a mistrial. Just a question, that's all. The other thing regarding the balance of power and access to the community is that, with community, is some of the things that I've done. I've been one of the people who, on the one end, I will fight eminent domain. I have fought eminent domain by the city, because I believe that if there's another way to get something done, the government should not be about taking away from you. On the other side of that, there's a time when the people need its advocate, and in the interest of, in fighting against the interest of the power elite. It's not coming out right. But what I'm saying, though, is that you need somebody in place that can sit there and balance the needs between what somebody is bringing to the community versus what they're taking from it. It's one of the things that I helped put in when the city developed the community incentive investment program, where developers come in and say, I will construct this big thing, this development for you in exchange for an abatement. And I helped put in there that we developed a scorecard that said that you will give this X amount of benefits in return for an abatement. Now, don't get me wrong, I did not do this by myself, but I was part of the team, and I was part of the people that pushed for making sure that the community's interest is included in any development decision.
Okay, I mean, these are interesting questions placed together, but the prison industrial complex is basically serving the interest of the business community in the United States. So, and in terms of not giving the industrial complex more customers, we do need to realize that there's truth to what Jared said in the word giving, okay? As a society, we are creating a world that funnels individuals into the criminal justice system. These are not choices. These are not choices that my brothers and sisters are making. No, okay? Not choices, okay? We are capable, all right? Beyond what the political system pretends, we are capable of supplying as humans for ourselves and each other, okay? We are capable of guiding ourselves, of evolving ourselves, and controlling our destiny beyond the repression of the political system, okay? Within the political, outside of the political system, in terms of criminal justice, the prison industrial complex and prison industrial complex, excuse me, we need to, again, put in real accountability. And accountability is not just written in the words. We need to be locking people up for human right violations. We need to be hitting people's pocketbooks for human right violation. Do I think that's going to stop oppression and dispossession? No. In addition to that, we must create alternative, autonomous coalitions of self-defense, okay? And one way to self-defend ourselves without bringing up the word violence, because I know a lot of people are scared of that word, even though it's imposed upon us every day through our food system and many other things. They're killing us, my man. All right? But we're good. We need to be present in our communities. As Black and brown, Latino, indigenous, as people living in so-called poverty in the United States, and it's very salient, we need to be present in self-defense. We need to know what's going on. We also need to be implementing within the system quotas. Okay, when a brother up here was talking, or a sister up here was talking about how local police will bring you down to the station without knowing who you are, without taking your humanity into account, we need to have at least a minimum of a 50% quota. Again, this is within the system. This isn't going to stop this complex, but we need to have at least a 50% minimum quota that officers are from Ithaca, New York, and reside currently within the city limits. That's the way we make a more sensitive, trustworthy, and trusting experience for our citizens, for our people. Thank you.
The question about the green one's under your chair. The question about the revolving door of especially young minority men is one that's very close to my own heart. And I think one thing that's important here is the first job. I think the city ought to be expanding aid to programs that help young people get that first job, which involves having the right skill set, having the right training, having the right work habits, and having people who'll give you feedback, help you get better, and give you a chance. One of the tragedies in my lifetime has been the destruction of Black families in this country. I think that Black men especially have suffered from this, have been devalued, and Black fathers. And one thing that will help that is economic access to jobs, skills, and all of the things that go along with that and produce self-reliance and self-determination. Absent those things and looking at those problems, trying to reverse that cycle, I don't think the other big idea words up here are going to make much difference. So I would really hope that on the local level, and we're going to have to do this on the local level because we're facing huge cuts. We can't, and by the way, one part of our community that's going to be hurt are people who are minority people who are working in government jobs. Because of the current economic situation, a lot of those jobs are going to get cut. And if a government job is all that stands between you and falling out of the middle class, you're in trouble. And the city needs to take a good look at that and to get ready to help.
I would just like to add that one of the things that that happens when people get sucked into they make a mistake as a young person and they get and they lose their opportunity that we all lose in that situation, because our young people, we have got to make sure that they have a future. And I think that there are people out in the community, I think people like Gino Bush, who are working with young men and getting them jobs and mentoring them and making sure that they stay in those jobs, or they are helping them stay in those jobs, and that you have an employer who is willing to help develop the skills of these young people. I think that's incredibly important kinds of things, and we need to be doing more and more of that.
I'll speak not in response, but to build on something that Wade said, which I think is a great idea. He was mentioning, I believe you said creative policing, right? I like this idea of creative policing, but also creative sentencing. Right? It's become clear that incarceration does not work to fix many of the problems that we have, especially the problems of drug and addiction in our community. Locking somebody up will not solve this problem. We need to rehabilitate and not incarcerate. That would be my solution.
Yes. I just will build on a couple of things here. One thing with when I talk about stopping the supply, we have people who do come back here, and we have here things called the Alternatives to Incarceration programs. These are things that can help people, on the one end, relieve some of the customers or clients that go to our county jail or county prisons. But we can also, this is something that will help give people a second chance. More importantly, there's been a long time a call for a halfway house or transition house here locally, because there are a lot of people here who have made mistakes. And when they've come back, they want to be able to come back into a community, but they need help. The transition house will help do that, and only when our community embraces that and actually helps build that will we have that kind of thing that we can make happen. And also, since Gino's name was mentioned, I've always heard Gino talk about one thing to get past the problems with addiction is to change people, places, and things. When this is home, there's not been so much of those things you can change. So this is when you need the help of community to, like I grew up in the Midwest, and that was a place of community where when you were doing something wrong, it beat you home. Your mom got the call from Mrs. Jones, Mr. Smith, and a couple other people before you got home. We need that type of self-accountability in our communities to help each other build ourselves back, strengthen each other, and actually build a tighter community in which we can all move towards that better place we're trying to be.
We need to be, I'm going to just piggyback actually on what I was talking about, because it's quite interesting. We need to be less xenophobic as a community. Xenophobia, we all define it our own ways. It's probably in a book somewhere by Webster, somebody who's relevant. But what it is essentially not acknowledging the beauty of people that come from other spaces and hoarding a space on the planet from others. That's seclusion, it's imposed segregation, and it's xenophobia. This doesn't just occur to Latina immigrants and African immigrants and Middle Eastern immigrants into the United States. This occurs right here with people who were born with the so-called legitimacy of a residential card, okay, as citizens. Really, I'm going to just end this real quick. The People's Emancipation Party is a new name for a existing movement that has been here forever. And this movement is a movement to move us as people towards our homeostasis, towards our stable space. Right now, as many people have pointed out for many different ways, we are not stable as people, and we are not one. The People's Emancipation Party is here to be a humble reminder of the necessity to be one for all of us, okay, and to offer viable suggestions within the political system, recognizing the limitations of that system, and offer viable solutions and suggestions that can be done outside of the political system that has put us in the position we are in today. I look forward to continuing the conversation, and thank you very much for your time, because that is truly our only commodity. Thank you.
I'd like to start by just saying this is what's fantastic about these kind of forums, and I can't thank the Congo Square Market enough because you see just in a short few moments some fantastic ideas that, and even myself, I find wheels turning immediately. And to elaborate, Janis talked about the first job, and Svante talked about rehabilitation, and JR mentioned halfway houses. I think second chances are a big part of this. As a small business owner myself, I have employed several people with criminal backgrounds. Now, I think that a lot of people would agree that the system as it stands does not work. The prison system, the rehabilitation, the idea that prison actually rehabilitates you into a new person is false. There's no truth to it whatsoever. However, I do believe that as a community, those of us who have the opportunity to provide opportunity have a responsibility to do so, to look beyond someone's record into the person and provide a second chance, provide an opportunity. I believe that as a community, this is the best power, the best tool that we have to give people a new life, a better life, true rehabilitation.
So what I'm going to ask people to try to focus on next time, Svante, you're going to actually get to start first. I'm going to read 2 sets of questions again. You can respond to either or both of them. But to try to focus on what you would do as mayor with respect to these issues. Several of the things you've been saying are things the community needs to do, or that have to happen, or that somebody needs to change, and less on what you as mayor actually would do to support that. So if you could focus on that, that would be good. These are the 2 questions. Please speak on these 4 historical and current events. 1, Sean Greenwood's murder. 2, the Amelia Kearney case. 3, Mumiu Abu Jamal. 4, the Africana Center. And be specific.
Wow.
The second question is, now you got 2 minutes. List 3 service areas that you've identified that cost us as taxpayers over $500,000 that are duplicates between multiple municipalities or agencies. How would you utilize your position as mayor to consolidate these services to reduce their cost?
The 4 historical events, the 3 service areas. Any one of these I could spend 30 minutes or more on. We'll start here because we're on the south side with the death of Sean Greenwood and the community's reaction to that death. A painful time, I remember it well, a painful time in this city and in this community. I imagine even more painful for those of you who were close to Sean, his friends and family. I think what's unfortunate, most unfortunate, about that issue was our community's response to it. It was a response that lacked empathy. It was a response that lacked understanding. The response also to Sergeant Banks' home burning down lacked empathy and understanding for Brian Banks and his family. So what, as mayor, would I do? And this is an issue in which you need to embody the values that you wish the city to carry out. Right? You have to, as mayor, be empathetic and communicate with all of the affected communities. And I don't think we did that well enough. I can't promise, as mayor, that we won't lose another young person, that we won't experience another tragedy. As mayor, I promise that our response to that loss will be a better one and more productive. If I may skip to the second question, the duplication of services. These duplications are all around us, in truth. We have so many opportunities to consolidate not just some of our services, but even some of our political life. Right? The difference between the city of Ithaca and the town of Ithaca, right? In reality, and to how most folks experience Ithaca is minimal, right? It's an imaginary line. But the difference in the services we provide, and yes, the differences in the taxes that you pay is huge at the start. So as mayor, I would push to work better between, specifically, you want a specific service area that costs more than $500,000. We've got opportunities. We pay, you, the city taxpayer, pays for both the Tompkins County Sheriff and the Ithaca Police Department. We've got an opportunity to consolidate that.
Speaking of the shooting of Sean Greenwood, which I know was a very painful thing for the entire city, my own feeling about it was that the mayor has to go. The mayor has to go wherever there's trouble and pain in the city, and I couldn't understand some of the criticism that happened afterward with the mayor attending the funeral and the services for that, because it's not a mayor's job to do anything but go where there's trouble and try to help. So I guess if you're asking what I would do in a situation like that, would be just that. And I think that there was a lot of confusion left over this business, and I think that more talk about it needs to be done at some point, because it could very well happen again, that sort of thing. Kids can go down fast, and trouble can happen fast. So that is what I would look for. And if I can jump to duplication of services, I would argue that while we can say that we could save a lot of money by having one police force for the entire county, including the city, and of course the city is within the county, there is an overarching police force. I would not want to see that consolidated, quite frankly. I think it's a very different policing. I think that municipal services, the consolidation of services, is a road that's often gone down that we shouldn't be going down. I think it becomes a catchphrase and sounds like a solution to a lot of problems, when in fact it's not. The water source is something that it would have been a disaster for us to join with Bolton Point, as it is for the same money. We've kept our own water source, and someday when there is a consolidation of service in that direction, we'll at least come to the table with our own source of water. Looks like I'm out of time.
With regards to Sean Greenwood, I think our city's response, actually no, there are people in this audience along with myself who sit in conversations with our mayor, with our police department, advocating for things that the city needed to do in order to respond to the pressures that came from the shooting of Sean Greenwood. One of those was the forum that we had here at the Southside Community Center. That is something that would not have happened without the voices in the room. That as mayor, that should be something that you bring in the voices as we were, and as we did, and then you make something happen immediately. Don't let it sit and fester for 2 or 3 weeks. This community was hurting at a time. This community became polarized, and a true leader would step in there and make things happen, bring people together. One of the things that I tried to do is to bring together the police department with members in our community, particularly our young black males, my brothers, to really sit and talk about the crux of what was going on, because those were two parts of the communities you saw that were very afraid of each other. And then there are the rest of the community who was afraid because they're sitting between them wondering what's going to happen with what's going to happen next. Only when you confront a problem like this and come up with solutions, have people come in to offer their own solutions to help, will we be able to get beyond something like that. And the mayor has to be the person that makes that happen. In response to Amelia Kearney, simply said, I have a child in the school, 2 children in school districts. Many of you have children in school districts. When they leave our home in the morning, we trust that although kids will be kids, they will be in a safe environment. When you send a child to somewhere that is household harassment, that is full of harassment, that makes the child in fear, that comes home, and you as a parent worry about what can you do to make life different. I'm glad that the district now has to look at the situation that brought on the Kearney case differently, and they have to address the fact that we are responsible for our taxpayers' children. As a mayor, I would make sure that if that's not happening for my children in this community, I would have face-to-face conversations with the superintendent and the board, the members of the Board of Education.
So what would I do as mayor? Mayor is, mayors are not followers of a current political structure. That's not what a mayor can be any longer. A mayor is a leader. So what a leader does is what, I have an 8-year-old daughter, Kaya Nzinga Gallucci. Her middle name is after Queen Nzinga of Angola, which has now been deemed Angola, Africa. What she did was she stood up with her people who were being enslaved by the Portuguese. They made a human wall and defended her people from subjugation. That's what a leader does. I did not see anybody in so-called positions of leadership in our community legitimized, at least political leadership. I saw a lot of activists and human being brothers and sisters out here in the community stand up and take the role of leadership. Okay, but I did not see any of our elected officials take a leadership role in the self-defense of the people, or in stopping this type of stopping the circumstances from continuing that will reaffirm the murder of, or continuing the murder of a young black human being by the repressive agents, the police. In terms of consolidation, I believe part of the reason that Mr. Sean Greenwood, all right, rest in peace, was not taken fully and wholly as a human being in the interaction that day with the police is because of the fact that there was consolidation of some sort of New York State task force, some type of collaboration between existing agencies. That led to miscommunication, unfamiliarity with the area, with when people would be leaving their homes and their schools in a residential area, when people would be getting their food from a local mart, okay, and the treatment, most importantly, of the family of Mr. Sean Greenwood, the acknowledgement of the fact that he is the future and his son is now the future and his stepchildren are now the future of this community. That is, a leader stands up for the self-defense of that. And that is what I would offer as a mayor, is a real leader. In terms of sitting back and being compassionate and empathic and humble, there is a lot about the current system that I have not taken the time to educate myself upon because it has been so untrustworthy to me as a young black man. I would, as the role as mayor, take the time, okay, to learn about the intricacies and the ways of the current political system only to be able to offer a viable alternative solution that we will continue to roll with. Regardless if I'm elected mayor or not, I'm going to continue to be a leader in the community. I'm continue to listen and follow other leaders in the community till they kill me. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to take the questions kind of in reverse order. With regard to the money question, I think that it's time that Ithaca move to a city manager form of government, and if I'm elected mayor, I will push for that. As things stand now, the mayor has to be consumed with the minutiae of too much day in and day out administrative stuff. Among other things, that makes it difficult for the mayor to respond as promptly as JR has eloquently described should happen when we have these kinds of tragedies in our community. I think we need to move to a city mayor form of government, and I'm going to city manager form of government, and I'm going to campaign on that. That's going to require rewriting the charter. The city charter needs to be rewritten anyway. It hasn't been rewritten in 30 years. Little bits of it keep getting rewritten by an ad hoc, sort of sub rosa working group that appears at Common Council with little tiny tweaks, and mostly they're very sensible tweaks. But they're not going to do the job. You want to read something funny? Go on the city website and read what Common Council's responsibilities are. It includes things like regulating horse racing in the street. It's time for a change. I think part of the change might be exploring, again, consolidation with the town of Ithaca. You know, I deal with, like the Cornell Young Republicans. Young people come in here and you have to explain to them what the city is, what the town is, draw little diagrams. They think it's ridiculous. And you know what? They're right. We need to be revisiting that. Finally, I think with regard to situations like the Greenwood death, like the Kearney situation, it is absolutely essential that the mayor be out there right and fast. And that's what has not been happening nearly enough. And JR totally knocked it out of the park on that one.
Thank you. These are some serious issues. Human life, the most valuable resource that we have. And as mayor, I would never lose focus of that. The way that Sean Greenwood murder was handled is it's inexplicable and unexcusable. The fact that regardless of what happened, regardless of who chooses to throw blame where, the fact is that human life was lost. And on the day that human life is lost, it is a tragedy and needs to be acknowledged as such. As mayor, I can promise you that I would never overlook any human life due to any circumstance. When human life is lost, it needs to be recognized. Every one of us is worth that. As far as consolidation of services, I do agree with Janis that the city, at this point, could use a city manager. I do believe that person could offer their salary in savings immediately. I also do believe there are select opportunities for us to consolidate certain services in the interest of saving money. For instance, many of you probably don't realize that our parking garages are actually handled by 4 separate departments. If you want a laugh, I challenge you to go down and find out the procedure for changing a light bulb when one goes out. It's atrocious, and it's highly expensive. Simple notes, one thing specifically that I would do as mayor, I would immediately move towards a better situation. A single person managing the parking garages, for instance, this is something that could fall under the guise of a city manager and a department head. But moves like that, they are small tweaks. There's no rash generalizations. There's no big, massive consolidations that are going to be our one-all, fix-all. It is a very complicated issue, but there are small opportunities, and the collection of all of them is the greater solution, and that's what I would focus on as mayor.
I think that the death of Sean Greenwood diminishes us all as a community. It was a very sad day. I from day one in my administration, I would work as hard as I could to prevent something like that happening again. I think that involving and giving our young people some sense of hope, giving them jobs, and making them feel like they're a part of our community is really an important piece in that. That they feel that they are part of the future of our community and their future too. I would like to just speak a little bit about the areas and intermunicipal cooperation. I also believe that we need to work towards consolidation between the city and the town. We have two separate planning departments. We have 2 separate public works departments. It is insane that we would have that kind of separation when there is no actual real separation between them. So I believe it would save money. It would make for better planning. I think one of the reasons we have so many problems now with planning, so many people unhappy with the results of our planning, is because we have not worked together with the town and come up with one comprehensive plan. So I would be very much in favor of that. I am not that enthusiastic about a city manager. I think, to me, having an elected representative run the city is the best thing. To have somebody who is appointed into that position, to that incredibly important decision-making position, I think would be a mistake. I would like us to move very cautiously towards anything like that. I would much prefer increasing the staff of the mayor rather than change the role of the mayor. Thank you.
Well, as far as the city manager goes, we already have several top-notch managers among the city staff, superintendent of public works, planning, and so on. I don't see any need to add another layer over them. They're professionals, they're trained to be managers, they're trained to be in charge of their departments, they're excellent people. I think that if the charter gets followed in the city, and first of all, I do believe that the charter needs revision, and for a year and a half now I've been calling for a properly placed charter revision committee. The State Department of State has guidelines to do it. It even has funding available. City of Ithaca does need to do that, and it shouldn't be done in the fashion in which it is being done. I've protested this for a while. If our charter is followed, especially once it's tuned up and revamped, there's no reason why we shouldn't have a pretty efficient government, and we don't need to be adding another layer in the form of the city manager.
In regards to consolidation, the city-town, that's one of the more prevalent things that we have here that we talk about, mainly because if you live in the city, you pay way more in taxes than you do in the town, and most people like to live in the town simply because it's cheaper. But if we were to pull those two together, there would be savings on our end, there would be costs for the residents on the other end. That's going to be the biggest hurdle that you'll find, regardless of what we say today, to make that happen. People will fight. We had a presentation made to the city once where the town, basically, people in the town said that we enjoy coming into Ithaca, using what's in Ithaca, and then we go home. All of us who live here pay for that. So just keep that in mind, please. And that's once we can confront that is when we can move toward really looking at consolidation and shared services. City manager, form of government, I lived in it. The way that is prescribed will not work here simply because Ithacans like to be able to touch, access their elected leaders. That needs to be carefully constructed if we are going to do that, but I would say right now, we just need to make the system that we have work the way it's supposed to. Two quick things. Okay, yes, good. After action report, the police department needed to have done that. That's my brother, right? Anyway, that should happen. And I'll just lastly say on Africana, I'm the one who pushed for a resolution that said that City Hall should tell Cornell to just chill out a minute, let everybody breathe, and let's brainstorm this together.
So essentially, in terms of consolidation, saving money, one way to do that is through an adjustment of approach. So what I would offer, and I would support others in providing, would be radical thinking. So if we look at, and radical thinking meaning looking at the root of the actual concern and revamping it from the roots to reconstruct something that's viable and workable for our people. When we look at something like dredging, for example, very quick, because people have heard about this for the last few years, rather than reacting to a buildup, okay, in the waterfront area, okay, and creating a facility to deal with this eco-terrorism, we could be descaling development in these areas so that buildup no longer occurs into our future, okay? These are the types of, this is the type of thinking and approach that I would bring to the position of mayor. That's it.
Just in response to the city manager's position, I'd just like to take a second to point out what the city is essentially in a $50+ million a year organization. And I ask you to consider how many $50 million a year organizations are operating on 100-year-old business plans. How many $50 million a year organizations don't have chief financial officers and chief executive officers? That's what a city manager and a mayor are, a team that can work together towards a more efficient government. If you ask our current mayor what she spends most of her time doing, I'm sure that she will tell you she spends most of her time dealing with human resources issues, with department heads, with things that a city manager could save her time so she could focus on the real issues of the people, your issues, and that's what the mayor needs to do.
I just would like to add that when the resolution about the Africana Center came to the county legislature, I supported that. Leslie Nabeen brought it there, and I voted because I feel that the Africana Center has been an important part of our community, and I would hope that Cornell would look at their decision again. Thank you.
I'll say quickly, and I do mean quickly, because even my sister looks bored, and that's not a good thing. I'll say quickly that the reason we're considering consolidation, the reason we even think about these issues, is because all of the easy decisions have been made, right? All of the old courses of actions have been tried. We've been spending the last 4 years on council cutting away at discretionary spending, cutting away at salaries, freezing salaries, doing the things that are already easy to do. So if we're going to get ourselves out of this hole, it's really a structural $3 million budget deficit. We're going to have to get creative. We're going to need fresh and the right thing.
So each of the candidates is going to get 2 minutes for a closing statement. That brings us really close to 8 o'clock, so we're almost on time. And JR is going to go first. You have to lead.
Each and any one of us. My record on Common Council shows that I have given my all to evenly represent the citizens of the city of Ithaca, and not just any one special interest. And I have been vocal about not standing up to benefiting any one special interest, because the people who pay for this is each and every one of you who sit here, and you do not always get the benefit of what benefits special interests. I've been a leader in various positions on Common Council. I believe of those of us sitting here, with maybe one exception, that I have leadership experience at varying levels, be it as a member of a committee, or be as the chair of a committee, or other activities that we've had on council. And also, I'm somebody who's been very involved in the community over my 15 years here. My involvement is largely with youth services, but it's largely also with people in this community, whether it's been the sweat-a-thon for the former rape crisis, whether it's cleaning up at the end of the Martin Luther King breakfast, or setting up when we have Juneteenth, or even, which was more prouder moment, when I was able to be part of the committee from GAC, working with the Southside Community Center's Board of Directors to give out the James L. Gibbs scholarships, so that we could let our local youth know that somebody's proud and watching what they do, and helping to promote them to do better as they move forward in life.
Okay, so as the mayor, just a real quick example is in the newspaper a few weeks ago. Essentially, instead of focusing on committees to clean up shopping carts around Ithaca, okay, I would focus on supporting the creation of a people's grocery, so that we don't have to walk all the way to Wegmans to get food. And we can get healthy food in our local community, in the Hancock Street area, in the North Side area, Conway, and even look further to start recreating these type of groceries and healthy food opportunities in Parkside, okay, up on West Hill, Chestnut, and down in the Southside community as well. Folks, you are looking at, what is it? My math is not as good as my true mathematics, but let's see, we got 6 people up here. 7 people. We're talking about role models. We're talking about people's perceptions of who we are as so-called Americans, who we are as Black Americans, as white Americans, as men, as women, as humans, as people. Okay, we are, as Kirby said, this is our time to have power, because we do have it. The people have power. We need to recognize it, all right? We could sit back and have the traditional thing occur, which I sure hope won't, okay, but a continuation of simple politics and simple politicians, okay? But let's be very careful of who we're choosing to be role models for my babies and for your babies, because I care about all of us. Let's be very careful. Take a long, hard thought when you're home, in your bathrooms, on your way home in your car, or on your bus, on walking, whatever it is, and really think about the choices we're making right now, okay, and who we are making our models for our future and for our children, and what we really want. A vote for me is a vote for us, and it will always be that. If I'm not voted mayor of Ithaca, I'm still going to be a leader in Ithaca forever. Thank you.
Looking out from here is such a treat. You know, I make my living as a freelance journalist, and I've worked in a lot of different countries over 30 years. And most of the people I know in other places wouldn't believe you all. They wouldn't believe that you're here, that you have the power that you have, and that this is how we do it in our city. This is how we decide who we think should be the next mayor. This is how we find out who they are and what they stand for. You know, this is an amazing thing. It's extremely rare and precious, and thank you all for coming. It's a privilege and an honor to be here with you. I think that, for me, government tends more often to be the problem than to be the solution. And I am very cautious about expanding government as a way of solving problems. I don't believe that much in government, but I believe a whole lot in you. On the city level, the city level is almost the best place to put those kinds of ideas in action. You know, if you come to Common Council, you'll see. People come, they show up, they talk about whatever they're going to talk about. And in Ithaca, it goes on for a good long time, an hour, 2 hours. Everybody gets to speak. It's an amazing thing. After a while, there are people who speak every single month, and you get to be very fond of them, you know? And even when they seem like they're saying somewhat flaky things, it's amazing how often they make important and useful points. We are faced with a time of enormous challenge and enormous transition. If any of you here are not yet registered to vote, I happen to notice that Chris has voter registration forms right here. Please come up and get her done.
Thank you, Janis, for making that extremely important point. And I do want to say that win, lose, or draw in this election, I want to take a moment to recognize the fantastic thing that's occurring here right now, and that is we are moving closer towards setting a record in voter registrations, and what that means is that people are realizing once again that they have a voice and that they matter, and that is a fantastic thing regardless of who wins this election. In closing, I want to talk about perspective and what perspective you want in City Hall. Now, the arguments against me are that my experience is not in the current political realm. My experience is on the ground level as one of you. I came to this city as a student, and in the past 7 years, I've been a student, a service worker, a business owner, a renter, a landlord, an expecting father. I've sat in your shoes, and I can promise you that I will never forget what it's like to wear those shoes, because I'm still wearing them today. And I will walk a mile in your shoes, and I will be your mayor. I will carry your concerns to City Hall, and I will represent you always and never stop listening. Thank you again, and as Janis mentioned, for those of you who haven't registered to vote, please take a moment to do so. It is extremely important. This is your chance, your opportunity to take back your city. Please do so.
One of the reasons that I decided to run for mayor was because I felt as if the city had lost its way. It feels as if the city is sort of at a turning point here, and it feels as if there's not a clear direction in which direction it's going to go. I feel that I have over 30 years of experience, of community experience, of governmental experience, 13 years of governmental experiences, have chaired any number of boards and committees. I have walked the walk. I have been an advocate for my neighborhood, for my constituents. I have been involved in community efforts in many different ways, and I feel as if I'm ready to be mayor. I feel as if the city needs some help, needs some sense of direction. I have a lot of ideas about where I want the city to go. I think that we need a mayor who has the experience and commitment. And my practical experience with different levels of government, my commitment to our neighborhoods, and my love of our city, I think that's what makes me the best candidate, because I've walked the walk and I know what the problems are, and I am very excited to work to solving them. Thank you very much.
And I want to thank everyone for coming out. I've had a blast talking about the issues today and sitting up here with these really a terrific panel of candidates. You know, the bottom line is I've got energy, right? I've been working 70 hours a week for my entire adult life, and I'm ready to put all of that time and all of that energy into doing this one job. I've got fresh, creative ideas, right? And I've got a working knowledge of the system. I've got firsthand experience within local government. But if we're going to do this, I know I can't do it alone. Those three things alone won't be enough. I need to hear from you. I need to hear from you tonight, right after this. I need to speak with you. I need to learn from you. And I need your help. So whenever you see me and I'm out and about, stop me, speak with me, come into our office. We've got a headquarters on 114 North Cayuga Street. It's off the Commons. If I'm not there, we've got volunteers who are in there from the morning until late at night. We need your help, not just to get elected, but to move Ithaca forward. Thank you.
it's been very interesting for me to be here. I've learned a lot, and I really appreciate you inviting me here, along with the other candidates. I want to show you, I have some typed notes that I'm working from here so that you can see this wasn't written in response to Janis. But here are my notes. The greatest lie, aside from those having to do with the war or two, that I've known in my lifetime, the one that says government cannot solve the problem. Government is the problem. And this is belied by the very building that stands right here. It was built by the WPA during one of the worst economic times that our country ever had. Eleanor Roosevelt came here for the dedication. So, as you can see, government is capable of getting some things done right if the people are determined to have that happen. And another successful endeavor by government was the building of the Erie Canal. It's a much earlier one. It gave rise to a number of cities, including this one. And it was a city that, of course, became prosperous and healthy enough to draw people from all over to come here to have a shot at starting, raising families, to build things with their creativity. And I don't see why we can't have some manufacturing come back. There's a new green economy coming. I mean, the future is now as far as that goes. This city has a huge, huge pool of people who are ready to invent things, to do things. And there's no reason why it shouldn't be happening right in the city at wages that are meaningful and that can, yes, help support the ownership of a home. So I've been here 30 years now, as I said before. I've served for several years in city government. I've been very involved, and I am not beholden to any party. And I think that that is what we need right now. We need someone who's not and who can work with lots of people and get things done. And so, last thing is, the petitioning period has just started for independence. And so I know Chris left it out, but we also have petitions, in case you're interested. Thank you.
I'd just like to thank all of the candidates again. Thanks for your time. Really like to thank Benicia for doing sound. Couldn't have done it without you. Thank you. And Kirtrina wants to say a few words about, in closing, what's going to happen with the questions that didn't get read or responded to.
I'd like to thank all the candidates once again for coming out to Congo Square Market. Hopefully we see you guys again this summer. It'll be nice. Okay, so we have a website now. It is called CongoSquareIthaca.com. And so on our website, we'll be making a video available as well as an audio of tonight's debate. And also, we're going to be answering. We're going to ask all the candidates the questions that were not answered, were not asked out loud. We're going to email those to them, and hopefully they'll respond to us, and we put that on our website as well. So, and you can also catch us on Facebook, and we are Congo Square Market on Facebook as well. So, Congo Square Market Ithaca.com for our website, and Congo Square Market on Facebook. Check us out. Check out the candidates and everything they have to say. And also, absolutely, Kirby, Edmonds, thank you so much for doing a great job and always supporting us here at the Southside